And welcome into the Orange and Blue Report, going into another weekend of Virginia men's basketball. I'm Dave Koehn. This is Jeff White. Glad to have you with us here as we break down, amazingly, Jeff, here we sit, 7 games into the season. It kind of feels like we just started, but it's hard to believe, but we're a quarter of the way done with this 2017-18 schedule for all intents and purposes, with just a couple non-conference games left.
Yeah, it's hard to complain when you're 7 games in and you're 7-0. We've seen good things. There are obviously areas that Coach Bennett wants the team to improve upon, but 2 games left before the exam break. Saturday at home against Lehigh, then Tuesday at West Virginia, which is ranked number 19. That will obviously be a huge test, but what do you think we've seen so far from your vantage point?
Well, I think one of the questions we had coming into the season obviously was roles for different players on this team. Who would step into what roles? And I think one of the real pleasant surprises, and I don't know if I'd qualify it as a surprise as much as a nice bump in terms of growth, is Kyle Guy and his ability to grow himself as a player, been better defensively, been able to handle the physical rigors a little bit more this season. And, you know, last year about 50% of his shots were from beyond the arc. This season it's down to about 40%. We saw him do damage last time out inside. And that really just adds a whole other layer to his game and how you defend him, because he's going to need it, given the fact that he really is Virginia's primary scoring option right now. You just can't rely on the three-point shot. And it's been fun to see him kind of grow from that perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't sure what to expect from him this year. Had he remained a one-dimensional player, I think he still would have been effective, because he's so good with that one dimension as a shooter. But I mean, he's really grown in ways that I'm not sure I totally expected to happen this early for him. And he's dangerous. And, you know, there's a lot to like about Kyle. One of the many attributes he has, I think, is that he's not afraid of the moment. Last year, he was the target of a lot of opposing fans because of his man bun. That didn't faze him. He's unfazed this year, too. It's cool to see a guy kind of grow into the role this early in his career.
Yeah, he's lost the weight of the bun this year, and it's been very evident on the court, quite frankly. But, you know, we went into this season, we were talking about this offense. What would this offense look like? So Kyle Guy's one of the pieces. You knew he'd be a primary one, but have your concerns about the offense been alleviated some to this point of the season? When you look at this team, what impresses you the most? What concerns you the most offensively?
Ty Jerome has been solid. I think he can do more, and he needs to do more offensively. I think he's a better shooter than he's shown. We've seen that in practice. We saw it at times in games last year. I think he's going to have to raise his game offensively a little bit if this team is to get where it wants to get. But, you know, this team came into the year with 3 veterans, the 3 captains, Devin Hall, Isaiah Wilkins, and Jack Salt. And all 3 of those have raised their games to varying degrees at the offensive end. And Devin Hall has been a really pleasant surprise there. So, you know, I think if they can continue to produce at that level, that's great for the team. You know, I think Mamadi Diakite, we've seen some really impressive and important flashes from him. If he can keep scoring on the block and around the basket, that's going to open up things for guys on the perimeter. Another new name is Nigel Johnson, and he has shown he can get to the hoop and he can make 3-pointers too. So, yeah, I mean, it's tough to talk glowingly about the offense when it's coming off a game like the Wisconsin game, but I think there's been much more good than bad with this team.
Yeah, and then when it comes to the young guys on this team, and this is sort of the pattern under Tony Bennett, you need some patience. And DeAndre Hunter, he's shown flashes. He can be a dominant player. We've seen both sides of the floor, maybe a little more ready-made than Jay Huff, who's still working on some of the other things, adding weight, which we knew was going to be a challenge for him, getting used to the defensive side of things. But you can tell those players, they show a lot of promise as well. Now, let's talk about the other side of the floor, where really for Virginia, this is what it's all about. 50 points a game, essentially, this defense is allowing. It's unbelievable. First in the country, both in efficiency as a defensive unit and as points allowed. They have been unbelievable so far this season. Now, of course, big tests looming. You look at what the ACC is doing. There are some juggernauts of offenses that are going to come into John Paul Jones Arena. But to this point, it's hard to not feel like this defense doesn't have a chance to be one of the better defensive units under Tony Bennett.
Yeah, I mean, the 3 veterans, the 3 captains have been, you know, fantastic at that end, and that's no surprise, really. So you start from that with that foundation of Devin, Jack, and Isaiah giving you really solid defense night in, night out. I think Kyle Guy has been better than maybe people would have thought he'd be, as you said. I think Ty, you know, whatever he may lack in foot speed and quickness, he's a big, tall kid, and he uses his size well. Nigel Johnson's got good quickness. Mamadi is a good shot blocker who's learning more and more about the pack line. So, yeah, it's funny how the names and the faces change, but the great pack line defense remains.
Yeah, the core of this thing is all about team defense, and this group really does seem to be very cohesive. I think one piece that potentially lacking that maybe may blossom into that role is DeAndre Hunter. To that point, he's got the length, he's got the athleticism, the quick feet. Can he grow into that role to be a lockdown defender on the perimeter against some of those challenging guys Virginia will see down the road? You're going to learn a little more about this defense in the next couple of days.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, we will be watching for that. That is a noon game, the Lehigh matchup on Saturday at John Paul Jones Arena. You can listen. Channing Poole will be taking my seat on the radio network as I shift over to the television side of things on ACC Network Extra. That pregame show across the Virginia Sports Radio Network is at 11:30 a.m. Until then, thanks for stopping by.